Hi, friends. Welcome to the Wise Witch Garden Table Sacred Sunday. Today we're going to talk a little bit about communicating with your spirit guides. Is that right?
That's correct, Sue. Good morning.
Good morning.
Welcome, everyone.
Hey, welcome to our subscribers. We really started this channel for us to kind of pull together all of our sort of interests and to try to give ourselves a creative outlet because neither one of us can sing or dance.
I could sing.
Maybe I could too, but maybe not on YouTube.
No.
So anyway,
kidding.
so really, much gratitude to folks who have subscribed, and we hope you find some value out of what we're doing, and we're certainly finding value. So thank you so much for joining and watching.
We wanted a place to talk about all our adventures, and in turn, Sue actually came up with this, and we're just really trying to be ourselves. That's our whole mission, and I think that's our life purpose now, is for all of us to try and be ourselves, and that's it. At what lengths we go to stay away from that is amazing. So the more peaceful I get, the more I don't want to say don't care, but it is a feeling of that. It's like liberation. It's just a matter of, you made it to this age, and so what? And I tried to get the judgment off myself and other people. So besides all that, the good part is that now we can just deep dive into whatever subject matter we feel drawn to. We start off like doing a little prayer and a little protection to surround ourselves with light and love. And we ask that our words be chosen for the higher good of ourselves and all of humanity. And that somebody relates to what we're saying and says, oh yeah, that's happened to me, or I want to talk about that or learn about that, and that's kind of how we got here.
Mm-hmm.
So spirit guides, which is one of my favorite subjects, because I think that's when everything became real for me. Real in that no matter how much proof we get, we always want more. And that's the thing with all of this work, is that we just keep asking for more signs and more knowledge and more direction, and we're so willing to go to anybody, and really it's about finding your own and really listening to your own, like we'll say, spirit guides or
Higher self.
And my first experience was more with my higher self, and then the spirit guides came later. When we sat in that circle, when I talked about this in my mediumship interview, we had a ceremony, a seance, and I was so skeptical at that point in my life and so arrogant. And I remember saying, okay, if there's a ghost in this house, we were in a haunted house, I'm going to throw out my energy. I didn't even know what this meant, but this is what I did. I threw my energy out into the room, and it was like a ball of fire. That's the only way I could describe it. And since then, I really haven't been able to recreate that. And I just want to say that happened a very long time ago. I was like 22 years old. And I'm 63 now, so do the math. That's a long time ago.
You were 23.
I was 23?
I think so.
Okay, so 40 years ago.
Yeah.
So when I heard my heart, here's where my higher self came in, because when I did that, a spirit actually entered my body. And it wasn't like, in the movies where it was scary, or like, my head wasn't spinning around, but it definitely felt like something came into my body. And my higher self said, don't do it this way. She's afraid. I heard it. I heard the voice. And it was like, it's different than my guide's voice. It's different than God's voice. But this is what happened to me. And of course, you have your own opinion and your own experiences. And I'm not trying to convince anyone. I'm just relaying the message. So when that happened, the spirit immediately left my body. I later found out that a man died in the house, and and he really was very friendly and just wanted to communicate.
Yeah.
He loved his house. He really didn't want to leave his house. He was a fisherman, and he appeared to me with the boots, the high boots, the suspenders, and the rubber pants, so to speak, right? That fishermen wear. So anyway, but getting back to spirit guides, I know I never had an imaginary friend when I was a little kid. You know how a lot of kids do have that. Sue was somebody that did, and maybe we could ask her to tell us about that real quick. But I didn't have that avenue. I just went into this in a different way. But that what I'm trying to say is that every way is right, and nobody's wrong. It's whatever happened to you or has become your truth or your experience. So didn't you have a...
I did. I grew up on a really tiny island off the Jersey Shore, Long Beach Island. Surf City is, and this was long before, folks, if any of you know the Jersey Shore now, this is long before the Jersey Shore became sort of this massive touristy, crowded space. We grew up there until I was 5 years old. We were one of, I think, about 40 families that lived on the island all year long. And I was alone a lot. My siblings were older than me. My siblings that is closest to my age is 5 years older. My mom had me at 40. So I was often sort of left to my own resources to entertain myself. I was very good at playing by myself and all of that sort of thing. But I did have an imaginary friend, which was actually a physical object. I used to go out in our backyard, and I know this sounds crazy at 4 or 5 years old, but it was safer. It was a safer environment, or at least that was the illusion we were all under, and I certainly survived it. But I would go, by myself into this big area of there where those beach grass, those big toys that are tall with the fluffy feathers. And there was a big field of them right near our home. And I walked out there one day and I found this tiki. And the tiki was probably about 3 or 4 feet high and about yay round. And as a child, I was very little. So it was pretty much to me gigantic and my size. And so I went out there every day that I could, and I sat with tiki and I talked to it. I even used to bring it, like a little baggie of cookies, and it had like a carved mouth, and I would put the cookies in its mouth. Cute. And anyway, so I did have an imaginary friend, and always felt when I was with tiki and sitting out there, I would sit with my back to it and talk to it and all that. I just always felt like I was divinely sort of protected in that during that time. But a little different than spirit guides, but but anyway, I certainly had that experience as a child.
Well, I think it's just for more help. That's how I look at spirit guides. Why not have more help? Why not ask for it? Mm-hmm. And your intention is what brings things to you. So, that it's, with Sue's help, because she really started me on the spirit guide trail. Do you remember?
Yeah. Well, I was blown away. I lived in New Zealand for 13 years. And while I was over there, I went to a seminar or what I thought was going to be a seminar. I saw an ad in the paper that said, communicate with your angels and guides. And I thought, yep, I'm in. So I called the number and I made an appointment, and I really didn't know what I was walking into. And I ended up going to a hotel in downtown Wellington. And I was like, okay, this is weird. There was no sort of conference room. And I literally went up to a room of someone I didn't know. And it turned out to be one of the, I don't believe founders, but one of the sort of leaders at that time involved in Findhorn in Scotland, which is a spiritual community. They're also attributed to creating, what's the name of that angel game? the game. It's not Ouija board.
Yeah,
but
I
you know
had
what
it.
mean.
I had it.
But anyway,
Uh,
they're attributed to that and creating angel cards.
mhm.
So anyway, I met this woman.
Is it called the psychic board?
That's it, the Psychic Circle.
Psychic
That's
Circle.
it, Psychic Circle. So no sponsor, by the way, but Psychic Circle. Anyway, I met this woman from Findhorn, and I'm still not even sure if it's Findhorn or Findhorn. So excuse me if I pronounce it the wrong way. And she was amazing, and she went through with me how to, communicate with your spirit guides. Again, I interchange spirit guides, guardian angels, ancestral guides. But so I just like to say benevolent spirits that walk with us through our lives. And so that experience blew me away. And during that time, I would travel back and forth to America every couple of years, and I would stay with Rena and her family for
my crazy family,
a month and a half at a time, because you got a lot of vacation in New Zealand. So unlike America, wake up, man! I used to have 7 or 9 weeks vacation. Yeah. Anyway, and so it was after that experience, I'd come back to America and I shared what had happened. So, yeah.
Well, we did first of all, I want to say meditation is where I really started to communicate with my spirit guides. And what I did was just ask them to come close to me, to communicate with me, however that happened, whether it was telepathically mostly. They show pictures, symbols. It's the same kind of thing as mediumship with the spirit guides, but it's not. That's a good way to, let's see, that's a very good point. What is the difference? Well, the spirit guides they're there for you. And if I communicate with people's relatives that have passed on, that's for them. So it's a little bit different feeling for me. It's a different feeling. I feel very comfortable and safe with my spirit guides all the time. And I think, you have a guide that stays with you for your incarnations, many incarnations. You can pick up new guides in different incarnations to help you with different things that you're mastering in, say, this life. I know Sue and I at one point shared a spirit guide. You remember that? Nimzo?
Mm-hmm. Nimzo, yeah.
And because we were working on like hauntings, and so we needed some help, some advice, some protection, and we both, tuned into the same spirit guide, and she pretty much told us that she was there to help both of us, which I had never experienced, because then my guides were with me, when Sue was in another country or I moved here or there, your spirit guides are always with you no matter where you go. So it was all about trust. And it was all about not caring what people thought, because I asked my spirit guides to let me know they were there and didn't question what they told me to do. Okay. And I'll give you an example of one thing that was very frightening, because it was about I was on this private beach, but there were people on it, and it was like 4:00 in the afternoon. It was a summer day, and they told me to take off all my clothes and go in the water. And I'm not a nude bather. I wasn't even at that time, although I'm way more comfortable. I was way more comfortable then than I am now. But I didn't want to do it. And they were like, no, it's okay. No one will see you. And I was thinking, what? How's that possible? Well, guess what? They were right, and I did it. And no one really saw me because I didn't feel anyone's eyes on me. I just felt like I went in the water. And by the way, that was one of the most freeing times to be in the water. I have to say, the clothing was a big, they were just trying to get me to trust them. That's what the whole exercise was about. And at that point, I really felt like I had nothing to lose. And I feel like we do have to give up things, and we have to, comfortability is one of them. And we have to trust. And, and then later on, when I got comfortable with them, I asked their names. I asked, why are you here to help me? And, can we do, we did like yes and no questions. And just like a pendulum, which we'll get into at another time, but you hold the pendulum and it'll give you, yes and no for whatever questions you have. And what they did was they pretty much it was like my body was the pendulum. And I would practice when I would wake up early in the morning or before I went to bed at night. And I would stand in my room and I would ask the question, and then my whole body would sway just like a pendulum. And then I found my yes, which for me was a circle. And then my no was kind of straight up like this. So that's how they started communicating with me.
So back up.
Okay.
So if you're interested in exploring a relationship with your spirit guides, a couple of key things Rena just said, right? She would find her yes, her no. So your yes and your no, my yes and my no, and the method of how they communicate to you may be slightly different. So
Yes.
so one of the things that's really important when you start working with any kind of spirit work, whether it's spirit guides, whether it's reading tarot cards, runes, any of those, anything like that, any kind of practice, is to make sure you create a sacred space.
Yes.
And that's pretty simple. Create your own short prayer of protection. We do that all the time. We do it silently. We do it out loud. Light a candle. Another good, another good method is, if you do have a bell, bells are said to clear and cleanse the energy. We have a nice little Tibetan bowl. So yeah, hit your bowl, let it resonate through, and it clears the energy. So always set a sacred space is what I'm trying to say before you endeavor to go down this hole. Don't have distractions. So no TVs, none of that. And I would also just suggest, as we always did, we have a really long-standing bond and a really deep level of trust with one another that, is profound to me, and I don't have it with any other human on the planet in this level of depth. So if you are working with others, be very discerning about who you pick and choose to be in your sacred space doing this kind of work. So you want to make sure you're working with people who have the similar intent of you, who can come into a sacred space and respect the process. That would be so I'm sorry, I digress. But creating that space, important. Burn incense, burn sage, whatever you need to do. What works for you, you do you. There's no rules. But do make sure you're starting out with a level of sacredness and protecting your circle.
Yeah, I think Sue and I have also had a lot of lifetimes together. And I think
that's another discussion.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is I think that's why the trust level was so deep at it right in the beginning. Because we didn't really know each other that long when we started doing this sort of stuff. And
that's true.
And there was some kind of, I trusted her, and I let her, guide me to wherever she was because I was further back on the path at that time. And then we had to separate for years so that we could get our own tools. And I know now when I look back, I understand why. Because you have to live your life. And you, like she's saying, it has to make sense to you. And we both had to separate to grow as people individually before we could be together and really understand what we were here for. And this has always been a big part of why we are here. At least for me, I know that.
For sure.
So
do you want to do a little like a demo of what you do, or with talking to your spirit guides?
Sure.
You can do it seated or standing.
I could do it sitting. That's fine.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I first just get into like a meditative state, which I close my eyes. I just breathe. A couple of breaths. Now I'm going to try to narrate it while it's happening, which is not easy.
Do you want me to narrate?
Yeah, I mean, I'm asking my guides right now to come close to me so that I can hear, feel, see, and understand what they're saying. Ah, yes. And see, they're answering me already because my body's starting to move, and that's exactly what they do. They're listening. So again, this is my yes, and then I'll just start out with the question like, is my name Doreen? Oh, okay. So it is. And let me tell you, you can feel it. They move you. I am not doing that. Believe me, I'm just sitting here. I'm the vessel. And again, that's the stuff that you have to believe yourself. I can't convince you of that. That's for you to learn on your journey. And all I can say is I've always gone to my spirit guides if I was doubting myself or if I was at a crossroads in life, if I was scared. I mean, so many reasons, it's just like such a love that I feel from the spirit guides. And, I mainly have 3 that I work with. And
do they have, yours have names?
Yeah, they have names. Well, I had one of the first guides I ever got in touch with. His name was Helios, and he was a big, like, dark, like Buddha-looking guy. Okay, it's the only way I could describe him, like a genie almost.
Yeah.
And I would have these dreams, or they weren't dreams, but he would teach me how to fly in the sky. And I remember, this huge being and just like putting his arms around me and just, I felt so safe and so loved immediately. And whatever he said we were going to do, we did. We just zoomed to another place. And the only way I could describe it was like lightning fast. It was like a magic carpet. If you're a kid and you have that, and you know what a magic carpet is, well, that's what we did in the sky. And he would just take me at night, and we would just, fly around. And I saw all the stars, and I never wanted to wake up from this type of thing. It was just so. He was one of my first spirit guides that like came forward and I could describe what he looked like. And I have taken classes where, we draw our spirit guides or other people that have that talent where they can draw. And oh, wow. It was such an experience to see that, put a face to it. And then I know everyone thinks they have a Native American spirit guide, but I actually do. And he was a brother of mine in another life. And when I really started, I went out west a lot when I was younger. I had like a connection to Arizona immediately. New Mexico, I actually lived there in Arizona for a year, and then traveled back to that place because it was a home to me. And I actually started really getting familiar with another spirit guide, and it was this Native American. And he would teach me things about the land, about people, about nature that was just incredible. And what it did was, I always was one that went hiking. I would go alone. I would go with one other person. But I guess I put myself in like vulnerable situations, and I never really, not ever felt scared. Sometimes I did feel scared, but most of the time I didn't. And where most people would have been scared, like being in the woods, being, going in the mountains and being scared, like coming upon animals or, mountain lions or bears or whatever it was. And just because when you have that fear, you miss a lot of what's going on. So I didn't want to walk and hike and be scared. It took the fun out of it for me. So when I brought my spirit guides, it was like protection.
Mm.
And that's really how they came into my life, was protect me when I do this reading, protect me when I go into this haunted house, protect me when I'm in my bed alone at night. And that's how I built my relationship with them. And then I did have one woman that was, and she looked very angelic to me, and her name is Vanessa. And she comes and goes. I don't feel her like so strong, but I feel her when I'm like really, really sad, I guess. It's like she comes close to me when like there's a death in my family, or when the energy is just very hard for me. And so those are the three main ones that and then, like I said, Sue and I shared one for a lady for a while, and she was an Asian woman.
Yeah, she was Japanese.
Japanese.
Nimso.
And she helped us with a lot of the haunted stuff, the houses that we would, because I did like paranormal investigations for a magazine a long time ago in Long Island and, in New York. And so you definitely wanted to take some protection doing these things. You have to, it's like anything, use caution.
Mm-hmm.
I always feel like God's light is stronger than anybody's light or anything. And I still feel that way. So I'm pretty much, I feel like no matter what happens, I would be fine. But I think when you start now, it's a little spooky. And people get a little scared and they don't know. When that spirit entered my body, I wanted to make sure it had my best intentions. And, if it didn't, then my higher self would ask it to leave. And that's what happened. And I was protected. Right?
Yeah, you sure were.
So, well, Sue was at that experience too.
Yeah, of course. I witnessed the whole thing. And I can say that your appearance physically changed for a split second. So,
okay.
I absolutely could tell when I didn't have words for it at the time what was happening, because this was happening very fast. It was during a pretty intense session. And I could tell something had entered her body.
Mm-hmm.
Her physical appearance changed. Her coloring changed. And then I saw the moment she describes as like a fireball throwing it out. I saw that happen as a very quick, it was like as quickly as her appearance changed, it came back, her regular appearance. I saw the energy leave her body. I can't explain that. Maybe it was a feeling but certainly knew the energy had left her body. And then the moment that happened, she opened her eyes.
Okay.
And I remember we both looked at each other and I said, well, what was that? And we talked about, but anyway, that's another story. So, and that's different than spirit guides.
It is, but work. But I guess when your intention is to be protected, then that's what you will be protected. Yeah. It's that simple. We don't have to complicate these things.
That's true.
And that's why, like little kids who do have imaginary friends, you want to acknowledge that. And I ask questions, when I have a little kid around me that, starts talking about something, or because little kids can go to that place before this life, okay, from past lives. They can give you messages that will blow your mind. It's happened to me.
Mm-hmm.
And it's there for all of us. Like when you meet a child, you treat them with respect. Just because they're small doesn't mean that they don't get your respect. And
could be a master you're working with there.
Exactly.
A 3-year-old master.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
Most children, are more evolved than their parents. I totally believe that. Mm-hmm. But besides that, it's just, we have our tribes, we reincarnate with groups and stuff. And so the other thing I wanted to touch on about spirit guides, like people would ask me, I taught classes, psychic development classes for years and all that kind of stuff. And they would ask me, well, can my grandmother be a spirit guide? And actually, my grandmother happened to be one of my spirit guides. And it was, my mother's mother who, for some reason, would always come in when we were doing stuff. And I just felt like she was a very evolved soul. In life, she was very non-judgmental, very loving person, and loved everybody. And all she ever wanted was just her family around her and her grandkids. And, she was just a very simple but loving soul, never said a bad word about anybody. Just so she actually is around me
made
a lot.
great meatball.
I made a great. Very well. I come from a long line of good cooks, that's for sure. Starting with my mother and my 2 grandmothers. But so my grandmother definitely, the only thing about when she would come in dreams to me, it was a warning.
Yeah.
And that then I was like, oh, Grandma, come on, can we have a little more fun than this? But she did. She warned me. It was always about somebody in my family, that something was going to happen to them. And, so this is why we want to pay attention, because really knowledge is power, right? So if you can find out more answers while you're here, I feel like that's why we're here, is to discover the mysteries that, instead of walking through life going, la, 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 this is not it. It's not. Mm-hmm. There's way more going on in the invisible than in the visible.
Mm-hmm.
So
I would say, if you stayed with us for this long, because we digress, thank you. But why don't you?
We express.
We express, for sure. We're pretty open. So if you've stayed with us this long, I would suggest, and you're in a, I would take this minute, pause this recording, collect yourself, take some deep breaths, say a prayer of protection if you're in somewhere private, light a candle, all of those things, and then stand up. And this caftan's a little short, so this is, we'll see what we can do. Yeah. Oh yeah, that's fine. So stand up, and you stay, and, and just ask, your spirit guides to
go ahead,
come. Yeah. So ask, I'll ask out loud. The motion I get is a little bit different than Rena's. So my spirit guides, well, let's show them. Here's what you do. You say, spirit guides, thank you for coming around and protecting me and walking with me through this journey and guiding me always. Can you please show me a yes? So I'm being rocked front to back for a yes. Thank you, Spirit. Spirit, can you show me a no? So I get side to side and it's usually the right. They push me to the right. Thank you, Spirit. Spirit, is there a bicycle in this room? And I don't know if you can see this, but there's a no there. Spirit, is Doreen in the room sitting down? So I got pushed from the back. So that's how I recommend. And I mean, I use this for a lot more than yes and no. Is a bike in the room. I mean, I'll use it. I'll be quite honest. I love to gamble, and not like obsessively, and not like a problem or anything, but
she's very lucky,
and I'm very lucky. And I attribute. We're going to do a manifesting with Sue video. Shout out to Jamie Goldstein, a great astrologer, who suggested I do this.
Yes,
but
Jamie.
We're going to do a manifesting with Sue Sacred Sunday, and I'll show you my process. But anyway, so before I go to the casino, I connect with my spirit guides.
There we go. Now we're getting to something.
And I will ask, is today a lucky day for me? Is today a day when I'll hit a jackpot? Is today a day that I should avoid gambling? Is today a day, and if you don't do gambling, let's say you drive a lot, I'm thinking of driving upstate and I'm going to take this route. Is that the safest route for me today? Is there another route I could explore and find something deeper about myself? So you can use yes or no, but you can deepen it depending on deepening the information depending on the questions you ask.
Should I call in sick to work today? Which is something my spirit guides told me to do, by the way. I want to tell you 2 instances where I didn't listen.
Okay, good.
Okay?
Yeah.
One, I won't go into detail because it's too embarrassing for myself. But it's more of there was a committee. Okay, this was the first time this ever happened to me. I was in the car and I heard like 5 or 6 voices, and they were different and they were loud. No, don't do that. No, no, no. And I did whatever I was going to do anyway. And sometimes I think I did that because I needed to learn. I mean, I know I did it to learn. But, you know, now I don't want to learn that way anymore. And the other thing was, happened in January, where I didn't want to go back to work on a Friday afternoon. And I felt weird and I couldn't explain it. And I just was just feeling not myself. And in fact, the night before, I had taken a shower. And when I came out of the shower, I had all this red, like a red blotches on my wrist.
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
And I went over to Sue and I said, you think I'm allergic to something? Because look at my wrist. And it had a big red blotch on it. And I didn't change my soap. Everything was the same. Okay, anyway, fast forward to that afternoon, I got into a bad accident.
So you did go to work?
I did go to work. And it wasn't till later that I realized that I was getting a warning to not go to work that day. And I didn't listen because I didn't want to piss off my boss. That was the pathetic reason, okay, why I didn't listen.
You got into a very bad accident.
So, okay, and it was my wrist, by the way.
Yeah, it was where she had the night before, where she had the ridge. She got a compound fracture.
Open fracture.
Open fracture, which was just horrible.
Horrible. And I actually...
She just had surgery again.
Yeah, a couple of days ago, so excuse my arm. But so, and this is the reason why, you know, we want to listen and we can get some help from spirit guides. Like, you know, if you're getting a surgery, is this a good day to get a surgery? Is this a good day to travel?
Yeah.
Should I book my flight and my vacation for? Yep. You know, these are all things.
That's funny because you say that, because we went to Vegas in March this year, and during the time we were going to Vegas, flights were being canceled left, right, and center. Remember, they had the TSA.
Wasn't getting paid.
This crazy regime decided, let's get rid of all the TSA workers, or we don't need them, blah, blah, blah.
No.
So everybody we knew who was flying was getting delayed, canceled, problems. Now, we had booked to go to Vegas literally for 48 hours. So not a lot of time to muck around and have to change flight, plans.
Right.
And before we left, I asked my spirit guides, I said, are our plan's going to go ahead as we plan? Or is our flight going to be on time? Are we going to get to Vegas? Are we going to get home okay without delays? And I just kept getting resounding yeses. And I said to her, we're going to be fine. And we were.
Yeah, we were.
And like Rena, I think the whole, using your method and testing your spirit guides is a way to build trust so that you can lean in more and more into and then you'll start to feel it on a lot more levels other than having to stand and be pushed side to side, which is something, you develop, but that's just a good first step to develop that. And, right.
And remember, we're human. And, I didn't listen that day, but the other 100 times I did listen, and nobody's perfect.
I think it's kind of funny that you took off all your clothes and went in the ocean in broad daylight, but you went back to work.
Well, because I was feeling it's a Friday afternoon,
no, I hear
and they frown upon you not coming back on the Friday afternoon. They don't like it.
They get a little suspicious.
They get a little annoyed. And most of the time I really don't care.
Yep.
But that day I was like, oh, it's a sunny day.
Yep.
I remember thinking it was January.
Yeah, it was January, yep.
And it was nice out. So I was like, oh, big deal, a couple of hours, and
Yep.
But besides that, there's no mistakes. Because I've learned a whole boatload of lessons from that accident, by the way. And I think that is key to life. That it's up to us to find out why something happened. Sometimes we don't find out the whys, but I think in investigating whys, you find out a lot of other things about yourself, about your growth, about your purpose on this earth. You know, so if we, I think that's why if we just stayed and we had no pain in life, you know, people say, you know, if there's never any pain, we would all be happy. But you probably wouldn't test yourself. You probably wouldn't grow as much. You know, I don't know. I'll let you know when I get to that side where I don't have pain, because, you know, life is painful at times.
Yeah.
It sure is. And then at other times it is the most, when you look out there at the sunset or the sunrise and you know something else created this, not us. Especially not men. That I could say.
Not man. Yeah, I know what you mean.
No, I said men. Okay.
I know you did.
So anyway, we just wanted to drop that in with the spirit guides, and we will continue on this journey, and we'll do another segment on spirit guides in the future.
Yeah, we sure will. Yeah. So have a wonderful, beautiful Sunday, everyone. Thanks for joining. I hope you explore with your spirit guides. You are absolutely divinely protected through your walk and path on life. So don't lose sight of that. Connect with the benevolence that surrounds you, and share how your experience goes. And thanks for joining, and we'll see you next time.